Hi, everyone, and welcome to disLIFE. This show is going to be about us, the people with disabilities. My name is Jesus Chuy Campuzano, but I go by Chuy. A little bit about me. In the past, I've had jobs that have been amazing jobs, but for some reason or another, I have not been able to succeed in those jobs. So I started my own project 2 years ago, just interviewing friends and learning about their lives, living with a disability. It's not easy living with a disability, especially when there are obstacles that are put in your way when it comes to employment. I am Chewy, I am your host, and welcome to disLIFE. In today's show, we got Seth, the executive director of WISE, who is going to be telling us of how I started with WISE. And we got Leanne Moe from Chicago, Illinois. Leanne has been on TED Talk, and I'm going to let her talk about it.
I got to do a TEDx talk last year, and the title is What Brittany Can Teach Us About Guardianship and Disability Justice. And part of this is from my experience working in a traditional organization and seeing people under guardianship who really didn't need guardianship. And then as a trainer, I've met with many people who have guardians who are phenomenal. And I've met with many people who have guardians who are not so phenomenal. And so I had a great time doing this, and it applies to older adults as well. So it was an editor's pick.
Nice to meet you, Leanne.
Nice to meet you, Seth.
So let's start the conversation. How did I start working for WISE?
Right when the pandemic started, Blue Tower started a webinar or a meeting, Zoom meetings with people with intellectual disabilities who lived in group homes. Because when COVID started here in Illinois, everything shut down on March 17th. And none of the people with disabilities living in the houses knew what was going on. So we created a what the heck is COVID-19 and started meeting with people. Well, that kind of grew into, we were meeting 3 times a week with about 40 people because people were at home and alone, and we had different topics. So how did you get introduced to WISE? Washington State hired us to talk about the WOW meetings. Those were what the meetings were called, the Worth Our While group. And we started a Facebook page, and Chewy would run the Facebook page, and it became a whole thing. And so we did a webinar for Washington State on how did we create this, what did we do, and what are we doing to keep it going. And the webinar was Chewy, myself, and another self-advocate. And somebody saw that webinar and said, we want Chewy. And the rest of that is history for how you started with WISE.
So how am I doing so far here at WISE?
We say, wow.
Wow.
I think that the story tees it up nicely. I think one of the things that we did was just paid attention to kind of not only just your message, but the way you made us feel when you were delivering it. And, the rest, it continues to be history. It's kind of following that momentum and following your vision of how you want to lead the conversation and just join in and go along for the ride with you. I think noticing people's talents is part of what we try and do, where everybody comes from. And I think yours was really obvious, really in the very beginning. And certainly we've been enjoying seeing what you've been creating.
Well, thank you. Well, this show is not all about me. It's about both of you. So tell us some of the work that both of you have been doing, Leanne from Illinois and you over here. I want to start with you.
Sure.
What are some of the things that you are doing over here at Wise?
Well, I think, it's interesting. We get to spend a lot of time solving problems in the work that we do every day, or juxtaposing that to creating things that are just new and innovative. And one of the main threads that we always do is we're always putting together training, and we're always trying to get the message out to people on what's possible, setting vision, getting employers and people with good employees matched together. In our case, people with disabilities into jobs. And so a lot of work at WISE right now is around doing things like what we're doing today, which is getting our content put together, being in conversation with people that have experience and looking for jobs and being out in the job market and getting a really strong message put together so that we can help employers hire people, that we can help people find jobs that they want, and that we can have quality content that is professional and goes toe to toe in any industry. Get those connections together. Still, a lot of people looking for work or that are underutilized in employment in the United States. And we want to see that change. And our training's one way of doing that. And being in conversations like this with people that are interested in doing that all across the country is really important to us.
Leanne, how about yourself?
The latest thing I'm involved in is an advisory committee for customized employment and a bill we're trying to get through here in Illinois to enhance the customized employment for people with IDD and really just improve employment outcomes across the board. In addition to that, I do a lot of work teaching self-advocates how to about self-advocacy. Chuy and I do that together. Chuy and I created a diversity, equity, and inclusion training for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities because they're usually left out of the conversation. And so we created a class, and we go around to different agencies and present that. And we also work together on a project about epilepsy, realizing that people who only have epilepsy kind of slip through the cracks funding wise. And so we do that.
Where do you see Wise in the next 5 to 10 years?
It's a great question. I think if I had to look into the crystal ball, I'd say that WISE will be reaching people all over the world with our training content. And our training content will be influenced heavily by people with lived experience with disability, teaching and leading and helping people learn what that experience is all about and what the dimensions that are possible for people with jobs. I think we barely scratched the surface yet with the type of jobs that people are interested in and capable of doing and will be doing. And I'm really excited to see how our technologies and our curriculums partnered with people with really deep experience in their own lives come together. And those lanes are moving closer and closer together intentionally. I think it'll be a seamless integration by then and even sooner. I just think that we're really going to be able to change the face of employment and what it looks like in the country and at least be a big instigator of that change. That's what I hope for.
That's pretty cool. Leanne, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I can tell you what my dream is. My dream is to support people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to have meaningful seats on advisory committees, on statewide committees, and doing that in a way that it's kind of like job coaching. We go in and then the supporter can fade back. And so, and teaching the people who run the committees, who are on the committees, how to support someone to be a part of the conversation, not just sitting in a chair so that we can say, we have a self-advocate on our committee. And so that is that's my absolute dream. Other than that, keep talking about people's rights and teaching staff how to treat people as people.
Nice.
Chuy, I was thinking also with that question, just listening to Leanne, it made me think about, just eras that we've been through. And, my journey with being a trainer or in technical assistance over the years and an employment person was this notion of expertise, where you would say, I'm getting trained, or WISE is training me to deliver quality employment services in the community. And we do that, and we continue to do that. So we have skilled experts with lived experience in delivering supported employment services. And that's just one lane, but now we're really, really aware of the expertise with people with disabilities and their own lived experience, their own life course in terms of what they're trying to do to be a part of the community. And that experience now is coming in and getting paired with the instructional experience over the years that we've been able to accumulate. Those two things coming together, our job's to get the technology, our job's to build the platform, our job's to find the relationships, and then our job's to use our skills in training to support people with lived experiences to be training. And that's really how we're building that kind of platform, building blocks that are going together right now for us. And so all of us have some experience that we've gained over the course of our lifetime that we didn't gain because we went to a training course. It was just our own journey, and we got good at something. That's really what we're talking about here. We're talking about a body of expertise we haven't tapped into. We've really undersold that body of expertise. And now we're like, wow. It's just like I keep saying wow, because that was your original thing that we saw with your group and the expertise you all brought. And so finding more of that, engaging more in that direction. And, we're trying to create momentum that way. And we want people to show up and share. So we're going to kind of be an amplifier, kind of trampoline for people to bounce out and go, hey, this is how this goes.
I enjoy doing these shows. You got two amazing people making change out in the world. And if you don't know it, people, there are people who care about you. Now to more funny stuff. I hear that both of you got pets.
Oh, yeah.
What's your dog's name?
Gray.
Gray?
Mm-hmm.
And what about you, Leanne?
Wee Hudson Duncan St. Rivers, the Earl of Mull.
Well, hello.
Yeah, we call him the Boop.
So, do you do yoga?
Barely.
Barely? I want you to think about me doing yoga. And take a look at this picture and tell me what you think. Leanne, you probably seen this picture.
I was there.
Yeah, you were in.
Go yoga.
Well, it's not a chicken, it's a turkey.
What's the secret word?
The secret word, she said it earlier. It was goat.
And that was actually farm yoga. We had all kinds of animals there.
There was chickens.
Be honest, Chuy, you sat in a chair and watched until it was time to have your picture taken with the goat.
Well, hey, I had to take a picture with the goat. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you. So fun.
It was fun.
It's so fun seeing you like in this space, Chuy.
And next, we are going to be talking to Jeff Grace.
My name is Jeff Grace. I am a person with a disability, and these words are my thoughts. I went to preschool and was taught my ABCs. I went to grade school, high school, graduated, got my first job, went to college, moved into my own place. I met the love of my life, married her, foolishly lost her, but let the experience teach me to be better. I've made lifelong friends, mourned the passing of some, almost lost my own, and saved the life of another. One thing I have never done is doubt that I am just like every one of you. My life is different. So is yours. I have unique barriers. So do you. The thing about being born with a disability is that you don't really know any different. You cannot lose what you never had. So as far as I am concerned, for the most part, I am normal. Reliable income, stable hours, and having co-workers with a better understanding of disability all provided me with something I had been missing in every other job in my life: security. Knowing I could afford my rent, transportation, and such gave me freedom to explore the things that interested me. I want you to ask questions. You are necessary for us to have even a snowball's chance of gaining those things you take for granted. A job, a home of our own. My disability doesn't make me less human. You gotta show up to change things. You gotta show up to make a difference.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we have Jeff Grace.
Hi.
You ready, Jeff?
Yeah.
So, Jeff, I have a few questions that I'm going to ask you. The first question is, what excites you about this project?
Everything.
I have been busy doing trainings about things I am passionate about. Through my own life experience and working with kids in schools, I have learned many things. I have waited for years to share these with people. I teach what I know. Independence is not a measure of what or how much you can do without help. We all need other people and other things to stay happy, healthy, and positive. Sometimes working with the kid means supporting the family. Some families are scared to let individuals try things in the community because that might put their child at risk. Some families don't know how to ask for what they need or that is even okay to ask. They don't understand the difference between adults and children's services and how to connect to adult services after school. They don't trust the system. I have spent years learning these things and understanding what it takes to make a difference. And learning that sometimes no matter how hard you try, a difference just can't be made. But that is not exactly true, because I have also learned that not seeing a difference is not the same as not making a difference.
How did you handle the commute to work after moving to Olympia?
I live 65 miles from work. My previous role and this current role are unique to Region 2, so there was no real option of transferring to Oli after the move. Also, everything that I love about my job is in Seattle: the relationships, some of which I have spent my entire life building, the networks I have built, it all exists only in Seattle. I could start again in Oli, but I could never replace what I would lose. So, it was never a question of whether, only a question of how. This is how: getting up at 4 a.m., getting on TB first bus at 5:30, 2 transfers, and on a good day, 2 to 3 hours later, I'm at work. But I didn't feel so bad about that. At least I didn't have to commute from Shoreline. My buddy Joe lives in Shoreline and he doesn't get in until 10 a.m. sometimes. And he teleworks.
How did the pandemic affect your life?
That is a hard one to answer because the pandemic took stuff from me that was important to me: a lot of my independence, much of my ability to speak, my energy. But it also created an opportunity for me to do something I had been waiting and preparing for my whole life: this. You know, I feel like one of the reasons folks with disabilities have such a tough time being recognized as active, contributing members of their communities is because folks without disabilities don't really know what it means themselves to be active, contributing members of their communities. I think it is just something that they take for granted. But for me, being a part of something where the work I have done my whole life is recognized as being valuable, and continues to make a difference in the lives of others, well, if it's an either or between this feeling or getting back what I lost, I could not answer that question right now.
Okay. What do you want people to understand about you?
I am just like anyone else. You don't have to feel uncomfortable around me and worry about what you say or that you won't understand me. Hang with me if you have the time. 'Cause, just like you, I'm a little different. And the more you get to know me, the less different those differences seem. My only rule is don't pretend to understand me. I can handle not being understood. I have a low tolerance for people who only pretend to care about others.
Thank you, Jeff. So I hear that you have some questions for me.
How does it feel now for you to be considered as a consultant, trainer, and a leader in the disability community?
Well, Jeff, I gotta be honest with you. I don't consider myself a leader in the disability community. I consider myself as an advocate, as a person who continues to fight for people like me and yourself. I'm looking at myself as just another person in our community.
What led up to you being homeless?
Oh, Jeff, that's an interesting story.
Yeah.
Have you ever been part of a protest?
Ah.
Well, I was a part of a protest, and my mom felt upset because I got arrested. So they kicked me out of my house. But I'm glad that they did because it taught me to be independent.
How long did it take you to get housing and how did that happen?
It took me years to find the housing I have now. You know, people think that things happen right away, Jeff. And the reality is that no, things don't happen right away. That happened to you too?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got connected to the agency that I'm a part of in Chicago that helped me find the housing I have now. I love it.
I have one final question. When did you go from being an annoying White Sox fan to an annoying Mariners fan?
Jeff, you ain't got no proof. Show me the proof.
Chuy becomes a Mariner fan, part 1.
Come on, Mariners!
Cut it out. By the way, Jeff, I really appreciate you, man. Next up, we have an interview with Lee Balenta, the former director of WISE. How are you doing, Lee?
I'm great, Chuy. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. So Lee, I wanted to talk to you about the history of WISE and the beginning of WISE. How did it start?
How did it start? Well, in mid-80s, 1980s, Tom Bellamy from the University of Oregon went to Washington, D.C. to work with Madeline Will, who was the Secretary of Education at the time under Ronald Reagan. And Tom had a lot of experience at the specialized training program in Eugene, working with people with pretty significant challenges to employment. And when he went to Washington, D.C. as a Kennedy Fellow. And when he was there, he connected with Madeline Will. And as a result of that, he had a great deal of influence on what was going to happen with people, adults with developmental disabilities regarding employment. And at the time, possibilities, the resources for people with developmental disabilities were slim once you left high school. You ended up typically in a work activity center or a developmental center where work was either non-existent or it was kind of like make work. So there was really no future. And the whole idea, once you got there, the reality of it was you probably would never leave. And what they used to say that at the rate that people were going with the history of any progress in those centers, it would take you 70 years to get out of the center and get into employment. And so that wasn't happening for people. So what Tom and Madeline Will put together was the concept of supported employment. At the time, the words didn't exist. But the idea was, rather than try to make people go through hurdles to reach a job in the community, why not put the people right into the job in the community and provide the support on site? So when they introduced supported employment, the idea was that the people who were going to be targeted for these jobs were going to be people with the most significant disabilities, that the jobs were going to be in the community, that they were going to be in integrated settings, and the people that were going to get these jobs and opportunities were people who actually needed ongoing support. The projects that got these grants were supposed to change the way states supported people once they were adults, and tried to change the developmental centers and the activity centers to either create new work type of programs or change those programs so that people would have opportunities to learn to work, to actually be supported in the community. So that's how the Washington Initiative for Supported Employment started.
How did you meet Jeff?
Jeff was a young wild man in the community, and he didn't have a job at the time. He was young, and he didn't have a job at the time. When supported employment started in the mid 80s, we also had in the state of Washington an employment conference. So we started it in 1978. It was held at Ellensburg every year, and at the time it was the largest and probably one of the few employment conferences in the country. And this conference was promoting the ideas of people being employed in the community. A lot of us knew Jeff and knew that he wanted to work and probably could work with the right kind of support. And a friend of mine who worked at the Division of Developmental Disabilities, Joyce Duran, and I, and another friend, David Schlesinger, who ran an organization that supported people in the community, basically we had this conversation at this Ellensburg conference and basically said, we're helping to find jobs for people all of a sudden in private sector employment. What about the public sector? If the Division of Developmental Disabilities is promoting jobs for people, what are they doing to hire people themselves? And so we knew Jeff. We knew he was a good job candidate. And Joyce pulled some strings and used influence within the state. And David Schlesinger at Eastside Employment Services at the time became the support organization. And Jeff got the opportunity to work for the state of Washington at the Division of Developmental Disabilities on Cherry Street in Seattle. Did I get that right, Jeff? Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And the nice part of it is that Jeff was then able to earn a living working several hours a week at the division, and therefore he was able to then better support his preference for beer.
What are some things that you're doing right now that you're working on yourself?
Well, I'm not directly connected in any way to the developmental disabilities field. Most of as a result of retiring and over the last several years, I've been just hanging around my house and working in my garden and building things and have a new greenhouse. And I do mostly through SES and several other people keep track of what's going on in the field. And if asked, give my opinion. Sometimes I give my opinion without being asked for what it's worth. But I enjoy. So yeah, right, Jeff.
I hear later on we're gonna do a fireside chat.
Yeah, what are we going to talk about?
Oh, there's plenty to talk about.
I look forward to seeing you later. Trish will be home. So when you decided you wanted to talk to Trish and me again, what did you have in mind? What kinds of things were you interested in hearing from us?
I want to hear about Trillium. I heard it started from the trunk of a car.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which is pretty cool.
Well, I'll tell the beginning part of it. I was working for the state of Washington Division of Developmental Disabilities at the time. And every time I was in a meeting, people were always talking about how people like Mark Gold and Tom Bellamy and a lot of people were doing research all over the country to prove that people with the most significant disabilities could work, could produce things, complex tasks, etc. But the reality of it is that nobody who had that many challenges, those people were not getting jobs. We were finding jobs for people who were less disabled, which was great. But everyone thought that people with significant disabilities, the label that we used at the time, should be working. And I kept hearing it in meetings, and finally I said, I want to do something about it. So I quit my job. I went half-time. We approached several businesses, and nobody, some people were interested, but not that interested. Eventually we found a business that was quite interested, and it happened to be one of the businesses labeled 100 best companies in the United States to work for. His name was called Physio Control. And the production manager was quite interested, but he said we had to wait. And so we waited and approached him 6 months later, and they said, sure, let's start. And ultimately we had a small group of people working, helping to make heart defibrillators. It was a fairly simple concept, and we supported the people at Physio Control, and so in terms of record keeping and all of that stuff, it was a shoebox. We didn't have to have all of the typical kinds of things because we were new. And when I went to the county and they had to do evaluations of how we were doing and what we were doing, I would just bring them the shoebox and say, here's all the paperwork, and everything you need to know is right here. And that was in 1983.
Trish, where do you come in?
I had to put up with the shoe boxes or the boxes in my house. And Lee and I, we had worked together previously. So really this field and this career we were doing together. So after dinner or before dinner, we were always talking about what we were doing. And I had been working in a small sheltered workshop, which was a demonstration project out of the University of Oregon. Primarily what I was interested in is the training aspects of it and teaching complex skills to people and developing that way. And at some point, Lee wanted to leave this position, and he had the opportunity to go to WISE and be the first director there at WISE. And so I decided to leave where I was and come to Trillium. There were 3 of us, Terry and Chuck Goodwin and me, and we started looking at ways to replicate what we were doing at Physio Control and find other businesses who were interested in hiring several people with significant developmental disabilities. It seemed like something that could grow. And then I think it was in 1989, the Boeing company had heard about what was happening at Physio Control, and they wanted to do a similar type of thing. But at that point, Lee felt, and I felt that the people with disabilities shouldn't be working all in the same work area at the company. And we had already started to get Physio Control to move people to be integrated in other work lines at the company. But Boeing had wanted to do it with people being congregated, 8 people together in the wire shop in Renton. And so the first thing we had to do is talk Boeing out of doing that and really thinking of people working individually at Boeing. Trillium started to grow with that concept of individual employment.
Do you see a big difference now?
Because the individuals we were trying to find employment for were people who were, again, had way more challenges than most of the people who were working than all of the people who were working at the time. And so, as Tricia's indicated, that those initial relationships that we had with businesses, Associated Grocers, the soap place, Physio Control, we started with a group of individuals because we felt it was easier to promote that concept with the business. We quickly realized that yes, that was a way to begin, but it's not a way that we wanted to replicate, on and on and on. So one of the big changes, certainly was the quick shift to individual employment for Trillium. And of course now, over all these years, Trillium has been finding jobs for people, individual jobs for people, because of the nature of the organization and Tricia's leadership and the quality of the staff and their own successes have led the rest of the field.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to see that. I was in the office the first day I got here. People talk highly about both of you at the office.
Well,
And they mentioned the story about the trunk, and I'm like,
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Trish was there. I was only there a couple of years to get things rolling and form those relationships, etc. But Trish took it from 1987.
I ended in 2015, the end of 2015.
And in those days, not only us, but a lot of other organizations, a lot of other people who were doing good things, we were so concerned and so afraid about losing the opportunity and not being proven to be reliable, etc., that we were actually doing the work, for the individuals, just so that we wouldn't, not lose the job. Of course, you fast forward to the last several years and today, and you're talking about approaching businesses and coworkers involved immediately, right off the bat. People are hired directly, etc. And what your job is you'll always be available to the organization, to the business, and to the person. But your job is to not necessarily be there all the time. So
The people were hired at Physio in 1983. And people in the state of Washington with developmental disabilities had only had the right to education since 1977. To me, what I've seen over the years is a huge difference in the skill level of people graduating. And no matter what the level of their developmental disability, very high skill level and academic skills.
So, what would be your message to companies that are still out there that are afraid of hiring people like me who has an intellectual or developmental disability?
one obvious thing to tell, if you form a relationship with a company and they're somewhat interested, is you could arrange a meeting with other businesses. We hired people with developmental disabilities and even facilitate an open and honest conversation about, what are the benefits, what are some of the drawbacks. If you have the opportunity to help people understand that hiring an individual with a disability really doesn't have any more drawbacks at some level than hiring a person without a disability, so to speak.
The population sees people with developmental disabilities working in, grocery stores and things like that. But the danger is that they think that that's the only place that they can work. They don't see the performance of people who are working in offices or other types of businesses that they don't ever go to. So videos of those possibilities, I think, become really important of showing that people with developmental disabilities are working everywhere.
In those days, early on, we were in charge. We did everything. We thought we needed to speak for people.
Would you say that the type of work that I do now would have been frowned upon back then?
Not at all.
No, not at all.
But we were so focused on just getting people jobs. And so we still have, for the last 40 years, we're still focused on that. We're so focused on that we were always the one getting the people jobs, and et cetera. The focus is on us. We were training each other and we were telling each other how to do all this kind of stuff. And I think what's happened over the years is the growth, both us letting go, us encouraging, us supporting people to speak more loudly for themselves. As in, you're just taking all of that work from the last 40 years and you're sort of on the cutting edge of doing that even differently than it's been done before.
I'm going to switch the tables around. You got questions for me?
Yeah, one of the things I want to know is what you're looking forward to.
I want to be able to teach people how to do this type of work.
Mm-hmm.
So another person with an intellectual or developmental disability is able to see if they can do what I'm doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to take this time and say thank you to both of you for opening your doors, for letting us be here and interviewing.
You're always welcome, you know. I know I'm going to see you again. Whenever you do come out to do some work with Chuck and Wise, you make sure you come here.
It was great to see you again.
Well, people, we have had an amazing show. We have had amazing speakers. We had Leanne Moe, we had Seth, and we had Lee. And, of course, we have had Jeff here with us today. So, it's been an amazing show. But I want to tell you all that this is not over yet. Tune in to our next episode where we will have an amazing guest. His name or his movie name, Fantasy A, also known as Alex, will be joining us. Hope you can join us then. For now, I'll talk to you later.